What if I told you the Springboks aren't the unstoppable force everyone thinks they are? Right now, the rugby world acts like the Springboks have cracked the code. The perfect system, the perfect coach, and the perfect blueprint for winning. But here's the controversial part. According to Steve Hansen, the biggest mistake the All Blacks could make in 2026 is trying to become South Africa. Not because the Springboks aren't elite, they are, but because New Zealand chasing another nation's blueprint might actually be the exact thing holding them back. If Hansen is right, the All Blacks don't need to copy South Africa to beat them. They need to become dangerous in their own way. That sounds bold, because right now, South Africa sit at the top of world rugby. They are back-to-back world champions and the team every nation measures itself against. They've become the physical benchmark, the tactical benchmark, and the mental benchmark. If you listen to rugby fans and media, the gap between South Africa and the rest of the world sounds massive. But Hansen doesn't buy into that idea at all. In fact, he's pushed back hard on the belief that South Africa are untouchable, and his message was simple: they can be beaten. When you actually look at the evidence, Hansen has a point. The last Rugby World Cup final between New Zealand and South Africa was decided by just 1 point, and the All Blacks played a huge part of that match with only 14 men. That alone tells you everything you need to know about how small the gap really is. The margins between the teams aren't huge. They're tiny, but perception changes quickly in rugby. And since the World Cup final, the Springboks have become the gold standard everyone wants to follow. Their power game has become rugby's newest obsession. Their bench strategy changed the way teams think about closing out matches, and their tactical discipline has become the standard every coach studies. Because they keep winning, the rugby world has convinced itself that it's the only way. That's exactly where Hansen's warning becomes so important. He believes New Zealand's biggest danger is losing to South Africa. It's abandoning the things that made New Zealand rugby great in the first place. That's a huge statement, because over the past few years, many fans have started questioning whether New Zealand even has the talent to compete at the very top anymore. Hansen shut that idea down immediately. He says the talent is absolutely still there, and after watching Super Rugby Pacific closely, he believes the quality of players coming through is still elite. That matters because it tells us that talent isn't the issue. The real problem, according to Hansen, sits much deeper than the players themselves. He believes the problem is the system around them, the pathways, the alignment and the clarity. Hansen admitted New Zealand rugby's pathways have slipped, not fallen apart, not collapsed, but slipped enough that it's affecting the final product at the international level. In rugby, small slips at development level become massive problems at test level. While New Zealand has been adjusting and trying to evolve, the rest of the world has been accelerating. South Africa has become stronger. Ireland has become sharper, and France have built incredible depth. That shift has changed everything. For the first time in decades, the All Blacks are no longer the hunted. They're the hunters again. And Hansen knows exactly what that requires. One thing he spoke about that fans don't always think about is the battle to keep talent in New Zealand. That's become harder than ever. Young players are leaving earlier, attracted by bigger overseas contracts, better opportunities, and different lifestyles. Hansen was realistic about that reality. He admitted you will lose players. That's modern rugby. But the challenge isn't stopping everyone from leaving. It's making the All Blacks jersey impossible to walk away from. That's where Hansen said something many fans probably don't want to hear. He believes the All Blacks jersey has lost some of its shine. Not all of it, but enough that young players don't view it quite the same way as previous generations did. Hansen pointed out one major reason for that: internal noise. Too much division, too much public drama, and too much noise around coaching and leadership decisions. When that happens, the aura weakens. And that matters because for decades, the All Blacks weren't just a rugby team. They were the dream. They were the ultimate destination in rugby. And when that dream loses some of its power, players start looking elsewhere. That's where South Africa have an edge right now. They have clarity, identity, and unity. Everyone knows their role. Everyone understands the system. Everyone buys into it. That kind of alignment doesn't happen overnight. It's built over years. And Hansen believes that's one of the biggest differences between the Springboks and the All Blacks right now. When reflecting on New Zealand's recent performances against South Africa, Hansen didn't blame the players. He blamed uncertainty. He said there were moments when New Zealand looked unsure on how they wanted to play, and against South Africa, that uncertainty gets punished immediately. The Springboks thrive on chaos. If your structure slips, they suffocate you. If your discipline slips, they punish you. If your physicality drops, they dominate you. That's why Hansen says the All Blacks need clarity before anything else. Not new tricks, not copying South Africa, just clarity. And that leads to the big question everyone asks. Should New Zealand simply copy South Africa's model? Hansen's answer was immediately no. He was crystal clear about that. Rugby is cultural. What works in South Africa works best for what fits in South Africa's players, South African systems, and South African rugby DNA. What works there doesn't automatically work in New Zealand. Hansen believes copying another nation's model is one of the quickest ways to lose your own identity. And identity is everything in Test rugby. Right now, rugby is full of teams trying to imitate what's winning. But the best teams don't copy trends, they create them. Hansen believes New Zealand can become trendsetters again, but only if they return to their strengths. Speed, skill, tempo, decision-making, and forward mobility that's always been traditional All Blacks rugby. That style made them fear for decades. But Hansen made one thing very clear. That style only works if the forwards dominate first. That's where the games against South Africa are really won. Not out wide, not through flashy attack, up front, at scrum time and at line-out. That's the foundation. Hansen says when the New Zealand forwards do the hard work first and still have the skill to play, that's when the All Blacks become almost impossible to stop. That's when the tempo rises, defenders get stretched, and opportunities start appearing. That's how you beat South Africa, not by avoiding the collision, but by winning it enough to unleash your strengths. That's the uncomfortable truth. If you lose the physical battle against the Springboks, the rest of your game never gets a chance to breathe. Hansen knows that, which is why he sees the rebuild starting with the forward pack. But even that isn't enough, because tactics don't fix culture. Culture fixes culture. And Hansen believes that's where New Zealand can make the biggest jump. He's been incredibly positive about the new coaching setup, especially with Dave Rennie coming in. Hansen believes fresh voices matter more than people realise, because fresh voices change environments, fresh ideas change standards, and fresh leadership changes belief. And belief changes performance. Hansen has seen that firsthand. He's seen struggling All Blacks teams become dominant, and he's seen dominant teams fall apart. The difference always comes back to alignment. Everyone pulling in the same direction under one message, one standard, and one purpose. Hansen believes that's where New Zealand can grow the fastest. Tours build connection, trust, and mental toughness in ways nothing else can. If the current All Blacks group comes through the experience stronger, it could define the next World Cup cycle. That's why Hansen sees the opportunity instead of fear. That's the biggest difference between fans and elite coaches. Fans look at South Africa and see a mountain. Hansen looks at South Africa and sees a challenge. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Can the All Blacks take down the Springboks in 2026? Or has South Africa officially become rugby's new dynasty? Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Peace!